What is up, DW Nation? Big episode last night on Raw. A lot of stuff happened. Some build to WrestleMania. We saw a lot of feuds end up clashing as they build to their matchups at WrestleMania. We saw 3 matches actually get added to the WrestleMania card. And overall, we wanted to see if Baron Corbin could take out Drew McIntyre so he could take his spot in the WWE Championship match for WrestleMania and the main event for night 1. So in order to find out if he managed to make this happen, you guys are going to have to stay tuned for the Raw recap. So without further ado, I'm Kevin Joe's Disciples of Wrestling, and let's hop into it. So we start off the show with Drew McIntyre. The realization of WrestleMania is really starting to kick in, and now he's starting to get into the mode. Yeah, Drew's getting into the mode as he is the main event for night 1 in the WWE Championship match against Bobby Lashley. My bad. So he ends up really getting emotional when he talks about the similarities between him and Bobby, but there's one big difference, and that's the sacrifice. Bobby has had just as much sacrifice as Drew, but the fact is, at the end of the day, Bobby can go back home to his family. Drew doesn't have that option, as at 22 years old, he decided to leave Scotland and leave his family and friends behind so he can go after his passion in the WWE. And of course, he talks about his mom, and he really gets emotional about this, on how he was really starting to hit that brick wall. And his mom flat out told him, if you come back, I'm going to kick your tail. This is your dream, and this is what you should be following. And of course, as he's really starting to talk about Mania again, Bobby Lashley comes out to interrupt. So Bobby Lashley and MVP come out, and they're talking, and Bobby flat out says, bro, I don't even know why you think you're about to win this match on Saturday. Last week, I saw a thing in your eyes, and it was called fear, as you went out unconscious in the Hurt Lock. And of course, Drew McIntyre interrupts and goes, it wasn't fear. I mean, the Hurt Lock is just an unbelievable hold. But of course, MVP interrupts and goes, Drew, I don't even know why you're still confident. You already know what's about to happen. Bobby's about to leave you laying in the middle of the ring after WrestleMania. Of course, Drew tries to interrupt, and then, of course, he tries to give his own prediction of what's going to happen on Saturday night. But this all works up Bobby, and MVP says, hold on, we can save this to Saturday night. And then he calls out Drew McIntyre's opponent tonight, which is Baron Corbin. So King Corbin comes out. He flats out tell Drew, you're getting way too ahead of yourself. You're not even going to make it to Mania. I'm going to take you out tonight. I'm going to take your match, and I'm going to take the WWE Championship. So after that war words between those three, we actually get ourselves our first match of the night, and it's a rematch from last week. It is Xavier Woods versus AJ Styles. Now, before the match, we actually see a backstage segment with the New Day and Matt Riddle, when they both talk about, of course, their respective championship matches for Mania. We get a little bit of Matt Riddle talking about him beating Sheamus, or wanting to beat Sheamus at WrestleMania. With his little scooter, of course, they're making jokes. And Matt Riddle starts saying stuff that goes right over the New Day's head. And I know it went over the New Day's head because it went over mine. Yep, he did it again. So we actually get down to business, and we start the match. AJ Styles takes control. He goes in, pinning Xavier Woods in the corner. Ends up giving it a nice shoulder block to get him on the mat, and then ends up locking in the calf crusher. While he's in control, we actually see Kofi Kingston yelling at Omos. He goes over to Omos, and he throws the microphone saying, you knocked us down last week, but we back. He throws it. Omos is getting clearly frustrated. Kofi runs into the ring. Omos gets on the apron. Kofi runs out. AJ Styles is clearly distracted. Ends up going back, refocusing on Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods gets an inside cradle, and it's a quick 1-2-3 match. Xavier Woods wins the match, and the New Day go up to the projectors in the crowd area, and they celebrate. And as they mentioned on commentary, if this exact same thing happens where the New Day just divide and conquer, then we can see the New Day end up retaining their tag team championships this Saturday. So next up, we end up getting a promo from Braun Strowman. He talks about how he's had people like Shane McMahon bully him his whole life about his size and really underestimating what he's capable of. And he's going to beat up badly Mr. Shane McMahon and represent all the people that have been bullied like this and their lives. That's what he said. Yep, that's why Braun's doing this. It's for all the people in the world. And of course, this brings out Shane McMahon. And Shane McMahon said, "You're stupid, Braun. You're stupid." And he said, "You know what? You picking the steel cage isn't actually that stupid. But for a regular man, that would even frustrate them, and you would actually beat a regular man. But I'm no regular man. I'm a McMahon, and I'm going to outwit you, and I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to prove why you're stupid." And of course, this sets up a 2-on-1 handicap match with Braun Strowman versus Elias and Jackson Ryker. Now, starting off, Braun Strowman's just owning these two. I don't even know why Shane even sent these guys. I mean, you seen this man eat human beings. Like, he just does this for his pastime. I mean, he takes out Jackson Ryker early, throwing him out of the ring, going right after Elias. And of course, the numbers game starts to catch up a little bit as Braun Strowman goes for the running power slam. But of course, Jackson Ryker goes right after the man's legs and goes right for the attack. These two get some nice offense in. Elias helps, ends up hitting the Symphony knee. We end up seeing these two hold down Braun Strowman as Jackson Ryker goes for the diving headbutt and Elias goes for the diving elbow. These two both go for a pin, and at 2, we see we actually see Braun Strowman pick up both of these guys and break up the pin. Then we actually see Braun just go in. Braun ends up building momentum back quite easily and ends up power slamming both of these guys and pinning both of them at the same time for the win. This ends up leaving Shane McMahon just jaw dropped at the entranceway. He actually was in the process of coming down when Elias and Jackson were end up taking over the match. But of course, once we actually saw Braun Strowman start to get back in this, we saw Shane mosey on way his tail back up to the rampway. And of course, we see these two have a stare off in the midst of the heat in their feud. So now we have the quadruple segments of Bad Bunny. It was actually 3 of them. I just made it sound like it was longer. But earlier in the night, we actually see Bad Bunny and Damian Priest pull up in Bad Bunny's $3.6 million Bugatti. Yes, we actually see them walk out and they clean, boy. They clean. Now, of course, with them being so clean, we actually see a backstage segment later on in the night where we see Miz and Morrison have 2 cans of paint, actually. Yeah. And they actually get stopped by an interviewer. They were like, what's the paint for? And they were like, you didn't know? We artists. We don't just make music. We make paintings too, you know what I'm saying? So they take the paint, they go up to this $3.6 million Bugatti, and they start painting. Yeah, they painted their own custom design, you know what I'm saying? And this leaves Bad Bunny furious. He comes to his Bugatti, sees that it's defaced, and of course, Miz and Morrison jump him from behind. They attack this man, leaving him beat down. Miz flat out said, "You want to disrespect me? I'm going to disrespect your car, and I'm going to disrespect you." And John Morrison said, "Welcome to the WWE." Of course, until Adam Pearce and WWE officials come up and break this up, leaving Miz and Morrison running. And of course, Adam Pearce asks for the medics to check up on Bad Bunny. Now, of course, this goes into break, and after break, we actually see Bad Bunny and Damian Priest come down the ring, and we actually see Damian Priest flat out say, "Hey, since you guys want to do this 2-on-1, how about we level the playing field for WrestleMania and let's make ourselves a little tag team match?" And later on, it was official, and we are getting at WrestleMania Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus Miz and Morrison. Now, our next match is Asuka and Rhea Ripley versus the women's tag champs, which is Nia Jackson, Shayna Baszler, with company by their boy Reginald. You know what I'm saying? So in this match, we actually before the match, we see that Mackenzie actually interviews Miss Rhea Ripley, and this is earlier in the night when Rhea's still warming up, getting them pull-ups in, the big body gang, you know what I'm saying? So, and she actually gets asked about this and the thought process of this teaming up with your opponent that you just whooped in the contract signing. And Rhea was like, you don't even need to question my thought process. What we need to do is Asuka needs to go out here. She needs to focus on the match. We need to work together because if we don't, we going to get whooped because these are clearly tag champs. And rightfully so, when this match starts, Asuka is in the game, boy, as her and Miss Shayna Baszler are very, very even starting off, all up until Asuka goes after Shayna's left arm. She goes after this and actually goes to get tagged. Goes for the tag for Rhea, and Rhea goes, "No, girl, you got this." You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, Shayna ends up fighting off of the bar, and then, of course, Rhea tags herself in and says, "Let me handle my lightweight." And then, of course, we see these two go back and forth, Baszler and Ripley just outpowers Shayna Baszler as Shayna looks like she's going for her own armbar, but Rhea just in the middle of this armbar takes the other arm and just power slams her. And now, of course, this works up Baszler, and Baszler tags in Jax. Now, Jax looks like she's a little too much for Rhea Ripley. You know what I'm saying? So she ends up rushing over to Asuka and taps her on the head, tagging her in. Now, Asuka's worked up, obviously, because of this disrespect. And she goes in and she runs wild a little bit. But, of course, the numbers in the tag team continuity between Jax and Baszler ends up catching up to Miss Asuka, and she gets worked over. Now, of course, she fights free for a little bit and goes to tag in Miss Rhea Ripley. But Rhea hops off the apron and goes, "Girl, you got this." You know what I'm saying? You got this, boo. You the Raw Women's champ. You know what I'm saying? So Rhea ends up getting back on the apron. And, of course, Asuka's getting worked on some more. And now, of course, she breaks out, that second time while she's on the opponent's side. And she runs over to Ripley and tags her in. Now, Rhea goes wild for a little bit. She knocks out, of course, Shayna in the ring, knocks off Jax off the apron. And, of course, Reginald wants to get up on the apron. So she grabs Reggie. And, while she thinking she about to whoop Reggie, Miss Baszler ends up chop blocking that left leg. And this goes into the commercial break, of course, as they go after the left leg. And after the break, we actually see the left leg continue to get worked on. As, of course, with some nice slow pace tag team continuity between Baszler and Jax, we end up seeing Baszler going for a heel hook on Miss Ripley. And then we actually see Jax literally leg drop that single leg. Yeah, that's a lot of weight on that little leg of hers. But we actually see finally Miss Rhea Ripley ends up fighting free and goes and begs for the tag almost as she's laying on the mat. And reluctantly, Miss Asuka tags herself in for the hot tag and goes wild. And she's going wild so much, she ends up going on the top rope. And Rhea Ripley pushes her off the top rope onto the outside. Now, while they're on the outside, we see Rhea Ripley power slam Asuka onto the floor. And then we see her shove and feed her back to Miss Baszler. And Baszler hits her with a nice knee strike to the face and then pins her as Rhea Ripley's all smiles that her teammate just took the L as she's now weak going into Sunday night. Next up, after this tag team matchup, we have ourselves a backstage segment with MVP as he's getting ready to accompany the WWE Champion for his match against Cedric. And of course, it's Cedric who ends up seeing and coming face to face with P before this match. Him and Shelton end up pinning MVP against the wall, and they say that MVP's nothing without them. He said the Hurt Business is what created MVP's persona, and without the Hurt Business, he's just a washed up has-been. And of course, Shelton yokes him up, and he's like, I might not beat Bobby, but I'm going to leave a scar on Bobby to show him something to remember me by. And he brings down MVP, and of course, Shelton goes, if you know what's best for you, don't be out there. And they walk off. And of course, while MVP's getting the interview next up, after, of course, this event's happened, we see Bobby Lashley interrupted and go, what just happened? What just happened? And of course, MVP's like, don't worry. We got to go out for your match. So this match starts. And Bobby Lashley literally dominates. Cedric got in something. He did. But Bobby Lashley beat him up in the ring, He beat him up outside the ring. He beat him before the commercial break. He beat him up after the commercial break. He did it all. It actually took Shelton Benjamin getting involved, taking Shelton Benjamin taking Cedric off of the shoulders of Bobby while he's outside the ring in order for Bobby Lashley to get sent to the ring post and then rammed into the steps. Then we actually see Cedric get some little bit of offense in. He has a tope suicida from the inside to the outside on the Bobby. We see him hit a nice missile drop kick, even a little springboard action. He goes for his little slingshot DDT, and Bobby just catches him. Bobby catches him and throws him. Literally, he throws this man up and just lets him fall. And then he hits, of course, the Uranagi, and then he hits, of course, the almighty spine buster, setting this man up for the hurt lock, and then he just submits. He actually didn't even submit. He passed out. He made Cedric Alexander pass out from the hurt lock. So, of course, the match is called over. Bobby gets the win, and then Shelton comes up, and he tries to go after Bobby Lashley himself. And then Bobby STOs Shelton, and then puts him in the hurt lock. And then that leaves his former Hurt Business cohorts laying as him and MVP are standing tall. So next up, we get ourselves a nice little video package building up The Fiend versus Randy Orton for WrestleMania. It's a nice little timeline from when Randy Orton lit The Fiend on fire compared to right now when The Fiend made his return, and with a little bit of narration from Alexa Bliss, which is a little nice, a little touch on this thing, explaining the events that's happened up to now. And I'm a little fired up for this match, I'm not gonna lie. They did a nice job in the Firefly Inferno match, so I can't wait to see what they do at WrestleMania. Now, after this little video package, we actually saw ourselves a little backstage segment between Mustafa Ali and Sheamus ahead of Mustafa's match against Riddle. And of course, Sheamus is looking to give some advice to Mustafa as, you know, he beat him. And, you know, Mustafa didn't. Yeah, that happened. So, while in the middle of giving pointers, Mustafa's like, I got this. You know what I'm saying? He cost me everything. He called me a little astronaut, you know, a little Buzz Lightyear did. He's the reason why I lost Retribution. And while this is all going on, we see Riddle with his little scooter just zoom right in between these guys, leaving these two a little dumbfounded. Now, when the match starts, we actually see Matt Riddle is a little too much for Mustafa, you know what I'm saying? All up until he wants to get cocky. He goes outside the ring, goes to the little commentary section where Sheamus is sitting down, takes his hat and starts dancing like he don't have a whole match going on. He gets attacked, and then we actually see Mustafa Ali roll him back into the ring, get a little bit of offense. But of course, the ultimate bro got some action for this man. He puts him down, sets him up, as of course Mustafa Ali has in the sleeper hold, ends up hitting a nice little piggyback Broton. And then of course this sets up for the actual Broton and exploder suplex. And then of course Mustafa thinks he got some action for him. He sets up for a nice slingshot DDT. And then of course Riddle catches him, stares down Sheamus, and converts this over to a Bro Derek for the win. And then, of course, Sheamus gets onto the commentary table and Riddle's inside the ring. And they have themselves a little stare-off and a little roar of words ahead of the U.S. Championship match that's happening at Mania. Next up, we have ourselves the main event, as we have ourselves Mr. King Corbin from SmackDown taking on Drew McIntyre, as King Corbin is looking to take out Drew and, of course, take his spot for the match at WrestleMania. Now, starting off is a very, very even feeling out process, all up until Drew McIntyre hits a nice, huge shoulder block, rocking Corbin to the point where he needs to regroup outside the ring. Now, they get back in, and Drew's raining in the fist and gets in nice suplexes, leading up to Corbin getting back into this with his beautiful around-the-post clothesline. Now, of course, Corbin's in control for a little bit, but of course, Drew's getting back into this, as he, of course, goes for 2 over-the-head belly-to-belly suplexes, a nice neck breaker, and then he kips up. Now, of course, when Drew goes for the Future Shock DDT, we see ourselves Corbin rolling out of the ring, and as he rolls out and Drew goes after him, Corbin just sweeps his leg onto the apron. But luckily for Drew McIntyre, he reverses Corbin and sends Corbin into the post and then to the steps. Now, of course, this goes back into the ring. They go back and forth. And, of course, Drew McIntyre looks to get an offense, but he's on the outside of the ring again, putting himself on the apron to where Corbin can capitalize and just shove and drive Drew McIntyre into the ring post. Now these guys go back and forth for a little bit, but Corbin has most of the control, even bringing Drew over to MVP and slamming his head onto the commentary table, bringing Drew back into the ring and hitting some nice cross faces. Then we actually see Corbin go for a nice superplex for a near fall. And even when Drew was looking to build up momentum again, he hits a deep six for another near fall. MVP comes over to Corbin and goes, hey, the goal isn't to beat Drew. The goal is to take Drew out. And he reminds him this and hands him his cane. And Corbin's like, let's go. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to knock this man out. And as he turns around, he gets Claymored. And that's the match, really. It was just, Corbin had given literally all the answers, but no. So, of course, MVP's disappointed. We see, of course, the almighty WWE champion come out, and we see these two face to face with MVP and the almighty champion on top of the ramp. And, of course, Drew McIntyre in the ring, as we're now official. We're going to see ourselves, Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Now, in this episode of Raw, a lot happened, a lot of build, a solid go-home show overall. We also saw ourselves 2 other WrestleMania matches confirmed, which will be a gauntlet eliminator it's a tag team turmoil. My bad, guys. It's a tag team turmoil between the Riot Squad, Natalya and Tamina, Mandy Rhodes and Dana Brooke, and of course, Lana and Naomi, where the winner ends up wrestling Jackson Baszler on night 2 for the women's championships. Yeah, that's going to happen. I'm not against it. I'm still waiting on Lana and Naomi's tag team title opportunity. So hopefully, they re-earn it again, And then we, of course, hopefully see that match. But I have no idea. Overall, it was a decent show. It was a solid go-home show for Monday Night Raw. It builds up to WrestleMania and their matches. So I'm okay with this. Overall, it was a solid show. But, of course, guys, we're coming back to you guys for this Wednesday. This Thursday, I'll be reviewing the NXT Stand and Deliver Night 1. And Jordan will be reviewing AEW. And of course, if you haven't checked it out yet, look at Jordan's NXT Stand and Deliver predictions as he runs down the matches of the card and gives out who he believes is going to win. But until next time, I'm Kevin Jones, the Disciples of Wrestling. That was wrestling, guys.